Go ahead and, okay, that's right. They got they probably on their date. I don't think we're gonna be seeing Devil Dog. He had a movie to go to at 4:50. So
Oh, okay.
they were gonna go. At least they did yesterday. I don't know if it's the same time today or not.
Oh, okay.
At one point, he was, Jamie had, his wife had gone through and put um, a hold, I guess, on their plans so that they could make sure they were there for um, a live stream that we were doing.
Oh, I got you.
So, what you want to talk about law enforcement related today, Wallace?
Okay. Uh, Here it is. In 2000, the Supreme Court ruled on checkpoints, and the Supreme Court said that checkpoints may not be used to check for warrants, for general crime control. They or as a general crime deterrent, they could not be used for that. So
Okay,
JPD was doing checkpoints. According to them, they were random, but they were not. Um, so they were sued, and because of this lawsuit, they've had to change their entire checkpoint policy. And this is an Exhibit A checkpoint policy. Gary, can you see this?
I can't, but the screen's pretty small, and it's possible somebody else might be able to. I could probably bring it up larger and see it to some. Yeah, a little bit. I'm not going to be able to read all that though.
I don't know how to make it bigger.
Well, the only way I know to make it bigger, I can bigify a little bit better, but that still doesn't help me. My eyesight's pretty bad.
Okay.
Fact is, I'm supposed to be going to see a retina specialist here pretty soon.
Is that, I just zoomed in. Is that better?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Their policy had to be changed. Um, Number one says conduct safety checkpoints only for constitutionally acceptable purposes. Safety checkpoints shall not be conducted for purposes of general crime control or deterrence, narcotics interdiction, or to check for outstanding warrants. Make sure you satisfy all state and federal law and local legal requirements. Conduct safety checkpoints with minimal amount of intrusion or motorist inconvenience. And they have to fill out paperwork for every checkpoint they do, and this is what their checkpoint looks like. Summary report on safety checkpoint, unusual of alcohol, drug, or other traffic related crashes, alcohol, drug impaired driving violations, other documented alcohol, drug, or other traffic incidents. This was a whole issue with JPD.
Okay, so what are you saying that? What's going on, Raquel? Good to see you. So what are you saying, Wallace? I mean, I understand there's a point to it, but are you trying to say that it sounds, from what it sounds like, the way they implemented checkpoints was not acceptable. However, it doesn't sound like they are saying that checkpoints are totally negated.
Okay,
Um,
let me explain. On a traffic
okay,
stop, what do you have to make a traffic stop, Gary? And I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, but what do you
well,
have to make a traffic stop?
typically an officer sees somebody and do something that is a violation of the rules of the road.
Right. You have to have
Probable,
probable cause for a traffic
probable
stop.
cause, right?
Here's the underlying issue with checkpoints. when you have a checkpoint, you're stopping vehicles without probable cause. That vehicle did not do anything when you stopped them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the underlying issue with checkpoints. So that's why in some states they're illegal. In Mississippi, DUI checkpoints are legal, but they're not meant to be used as a general crime control or deterrence. So the point is you have to be very careful about checkpoints, when you use them, what you do in the process of those checkpoints.
Mm-hmm. Well,
because you can very easily violate someone's Fourth Amendment right.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but it does, bring to mind that a lot of these officers, when they stop somebody anyhow, are fishing, and looking for something that they can do more with, or find out more.
Yeah, but their initial stop, though, on a traffic stop is based on probable cause. When you do a checkpoint, you're stopping vehicles without probable cause.
That's true.
Generally, an officer stops somebody, and probable cause is not hard to get on a vehicle. They can not use a turn signal. They can roll through a stop sign. They can not have a tag light. One of their headlights can be out. It's very easy to get probable cause to stop a vehicle.
That's true.
That's all they need to stop a vehicle. So, but that's
well, that brings an interesting question, because some places where you go say that, they have this sign a lot of times saying that vehicles are subject to search.
Correct. And our place of employment does have that sign.
I understand that, and that's why, and there are times when, it is necessary to search vehicles.
It is.
No, just the only searches I tip, for the most part, every search is just a very cursory search. And normally, it's not like people get in trouble typically unless they come in doing something really stupid like smoking dope, which is illegal in the state of Mississippi. Now, I don't know if that's illegal in other states. I know smoking dope ain't illegal, but I don't know if driving and smoking and driving is illegal. I would think that would be.
You can get a DUI for being high.
No. Well, I really hadn't looked into that because I don't smoke dope and I don't live in those places. So it's not one of those things that I'm not trying to enforce the laws in those places.
Right.
I guess.
So it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to you.
It is.
Yeah.
How you doing, Raquel? You got anything going on? Oh, by the way, I guess if you want to come up and chat, let me throw up the link. It ain't like there's going to be a whole slew of folks up in here anyhow. But, anybody does come in here, it's going to be a very limited group of people. Anyhow, if you'd like to come up, you're welcome to. But yeah, I say what you're saying. It can be, of course, I expect that's a lot, that's a lot like a lot of things when you're dealing with the law. Has to be very specific. And I don't know if there's a sign saying every vehicle subject to inspection. And I know that people have to identify themselves if they're an operator of a vehicle. And they have to follow, at least here, they have to follow the direction of the officer as far as getting out of the vehicle and, staying in the vehicle. What was that? Pennsylvania v. Mims or something like that from the Supreme Court. There's a lot of, in fact, I guess I ought to throw out I've got a few court cases that, I reckon I'll mention Supreme Court cases that were, I got them, I think, from Donut Operator. What? I like Donut Operator.
I know.
He's good people. Of course,
Yes.
I watch him. I used to. I ain't seen him in a little while. I've been focused more or less on YouTube, on smaller channels, and growing my own channels and that type of thing. And so we just I usually watch him, Officer 401, and Mike the Cop. Those are some of the police officers I have a tendency to watch.
I do want to say this in case other people are watching. In reference to what we're talking about, you need to check your state and local laws in reference to this, because every state has different laws about checkpoints. I do want to put that disclaimer out there.
That's a good point to make. Since how so many states are so different.
Yes. Gary, did you get your desktop working?
No, but I did find out some interesting information. But yeah, it is working. That keyboard and mouse that I got, fixed it right up. Got it to where it's I can use it. The only trouble with it now is it's way too old. It's this computer that I have right now originally came out in 2004.
Oh, that is really old.
So it's pretty old. I mean, it's got 320 gig of hard drive, which back in that day was a lot.
Right.
But it's I did talk with oh, here it is. I did talk with T-Rock, and he's supposed to go through. He worked me up a schematic. I don't know if you call it a schematic. A breakdown of the different components that we'd need to build me one. And looks like a really nice one. But he's got it done with 32 gigabytes of RAM. But I won't, and I don't know, it may be overkill, but I want 64 megabytes of RAM. I think that's pretty much max. I think 64 megabytes or gigabytes of RAM is as much as you can get. But I don't want, when I go to editing or whatever, I want that bad boy to go just as fast as it can go. And I don't want any buffering.
Well, here's the thing, Gary. You need a really good processor, and you need a good amount of RAM.
Well,
and you can always add RAM later.
Well, that's true, but I just soon get it right out the gate.
I get that. What kind of processor is he putting in it?
I got it pulled up here. Do you know much about computers?
Yes.
All right. An Intel Core i5 12400 desktop processor, 18M cache.
Hang on. Intel. I just needed the Intel 5. He's putting an Intel 5
Intel Core i5 dash 12400.
Yeah.
Up to 4.4 gigahertz, I guess. He's got on here listed two 16 gigabyte, RAM sticks.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking I want twice that.
Yeah.
While we're here, let me throw out a few Supreme Court decisions. And you're probably familiar with most of these, or you may not. Maybe some of this would be new information.
Terry versus Ohio also kind of plays into checkpoints, if that's one you're going to bring up.
Well, that's one that's on my list, but it's about the fifth or sixth one down.
Yeah, but that one also plays a role.
Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with Pennsylvania v. Mims?
Sounds familiar.
It deals with driver exiting the vehicle when ordered to do so.
Yes. Yeah, and we have our state law requires it. You have to follow lawful order by a law enforcement officer.
That's right.
And most states do.
Well, there's also Maryland versus Wilson,
Which one is that?
That one deals with passengers must exit. The passengers must also exit the vehicle when ordered to do so. That's according to the Supreme Court. And there's also Brindlin versus California. And that basically deals with officers can keep a passenger in the car or order a passenger to stay in the car. Another one that I've gotten is Tennessee versus Garner. It's dealing with the use of deadly force when suspect is fleeing or when the subject is fleeing. If there is a significant threat of death, to officers or others.
That one's used quite a bit.
I would think so. Chamel versus California deals with search incident to arrest, warrantless search on their person in the area within the arrested person's control. Yeah, within their area of control. And then we come to the one that you was just talking about. I think, well, actually, that Terry versus Ohio. Stop and frisk may be armed and presently dangerous. And another one people may want to be familiar with is Minnesota versus Dickerson. And it basically is about pat down if you feel they have a reasonable suspicion that they may actually that it may actually be drugs, and dealing with warrantless seizures.
Those are all very important Supreme Court cases, Gary.
Well, that's why I'm bringing them up. Illinois versus Wardlow is flight plus high crime spree area provides enough for a Terry stop.
Mm-hmm. They use that one to stop people leaving drug houses.
All right, and we got Graham versus Connor. It deals with objective reasonableness from an officer's perspective. Florida versus JL is can't search someone just off of an anonymous tip. Maryland versus King, like search incident to arrest, but with body parts. In other words, like DNA, fingerprints, photos, etc. And then obviously, Mapp versus versus Ohio deals with fruit of the poisonous tree. In other words,
Uh-huh.
well, you know what that is.
Uh-huh.
Then we've got Wren versus U.S. Any traffic violation committed by a driver is a legitimate cause for a traffic stop. So,
Say that again.
sure, Wren versus Ohio
Uh-huh.
talks about, basically says that any traffic violation committed by a driver is a legitimate cause for a traffic stop.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Hannibal versus Nevada, at least in 24 states, must identify. You must identify yourself in 24 states. Now, Mississippi has a lawful command order, which is basically saying that you must follow the lawful command of a police officer.
Yes.
So, anyhow, those were just some cases that I watched. I think it was Donut Operator went over. It may be Mike the Cop. It may be Officer 401, something like that. But anyhow, it was just something of interest that I cared enough to write make note
To
of.
write down. Yeah.
Yeah, because it when people ask you about things, it's helpful to be able to quote something.
Right.
Um, Reminds me, well, there's all that's a whole nother subject I ain't getting into. But
What?
I was just thinking about um, the fact is that everybody these days, if you ask somebody to identify somebody that they would consider as a hero or a role model, somebody to look up to, um, I don't think there's a whole lot of role models, or at least not good ones. Um, if you think about it, most everybody, a lot of folks today, sit there and they look up to sports figures, or they look up to, people, musicians, or people that have a high dollar, I guess some folks look up to folks that, that make a lot of money when you're dealing with, Wall Street or trading and that type of thing. But
I think that
there
goes
was,
into the same category of looking up to celebrities.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. And I guess celebrities become celebrities oftentimes for nothing noble.
Right.
Um, was a time when you looked up to people that, that for something that you might consider noble. So I was just thinking about that. There's, thinking about role models, thinking about, some of the things that people should look up to. And in
I see.
fact, they sure,
I see you got Belt Loop 29 mental comp on your thing.
that reminds me, I need to change that. I meant to change that. Let me go through and edit that name and change the. You want to hear something funny? I think most anybody on here probably knows I'm Belt Loop 29, and that's fine. But I was trying to keep this separate from. I'm trying to keep this separate from my Belt Loop 29 stuff. I'm not trying to intertwine the two. I don't know if I can or not. But anyhow, the I was on a live stream the other day, and somebody had changed somebody's, and I had just done this show, so I forgot to change the name off of Mental Cop.
Uh-huh.
So when I hopped up on there, it says something about Mental Cop, and I think the only one that saw it may have been somebody. In fact, I think I had changed his name,
Uh-huh.
or somebody had, maybe maybe Bacon Hater changed it. I'm gonna have to try to get used to saying those things. But it's different, It's like trying to put myself into a whole other situation. But anyhow, I think the only one that noticed it was the fellow that I had changed his name, and he laughed and laughed. He thought I didn't talk with him about it, but I think he think that, but I think that he probably thinks that Bacon Hater, changed my name on
To
there.
Mental Cop.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
so I don't think he's got a clue that I've got a channel called Mental Cop. So
Well, Gary,
anyhow,
I'm gonna have to start planning what I want to talk about on Saturdays.
sounds like a good idea.
Um, the
Well,
checkpoint issue was not that detailed of an issue, and you couldn't really see it, so it didn't serve. It was okay though.
well, I think it's a valid point. I think it's something that should be looked at. But I think that I don't think that anybody would disagree with the fact that checkpoints are legal. But as far as the scope or the purpose of the checkpoint, and for that matter, the way they're implemented.
But at our place of employment, we could do checkpoints just for marijuana and probably catch plenty of people because for
Yeah,
some reason people like to drive up to our gate hotboxing. So
yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't want
no,
anybody to
but
be smoking dope coming up to, when they know there's police officers right there. Or maybe
right.
that's it. Maybe they just think we're security guards.
Security, yes. Yeah, I
So,
think that's part of the problem.
they don't realize that we have the power to arrest. They don't realize that we have the power to write tickets.
We have the
We're
same power any other police department does.
That's right. That's right. And that's, even though we're not called upon for the most part to do a lot of the same things as some police departments or some other officers,
Right.
we still go through the same training. We still go through we're still certified. We're still, I think that people are going to be people wherever you go, and you're going to have stupid people and you're going to have smart people.
After all, Gary, we did have, when I was working B shift, we did have one domestic that occurred on campus.
That's
You
true.
remember that? Yeah.
I do remember that. And we've had several things going out there
Right.
and that we can't really discuss, but yeah, we do have some law enforcement that goes on. Sometimes it's necessary. But my personal way of looking at things, though, I kind of look at them. Maybe I see myself too much like Andy Taylor. You ever watch Andy Griffith Show?
I did, but I haven't watched it in a long time, but I did watch it. My grandfather would watch it.
Well, he had a tendency to try to use common sense ways of looking at things, and try to sell things.
That's against policy where we work.
Oh, cool. Have you met Mark Kratz there, Wallace?
No, sir. How you doing, Mark?
Pretty good, Wallace. Pleasure to meet you.
Have you met
Yes, sir.
Mark Kratz there, Wallace?
Well, let me tell you this, Wallace. Mark Kratz has military background, has police officer, has done the SWAT thing. Is one hell of a shot.
Let me tell you this, Wallace. Mark Kratz.
Mark, you may want to go to your YouTube side and mute it.
I think he just did.
I just did, I think.
It's all good. Wallace, the reason why I call this thing mental cop is because I work at a mental hospital, and so does Wallace. But Wallace has experience out on the streets of Greenville and Brandon, and so anyhow. But Mark's awesome. Really, just no other way to say it. He's a hell of a shot, man. Yeah, you ever get a chance to go watch some of his videos on his shooting. He can shoot things with one of them slingshots, man. But I
Yeah.
ain't lying. Shooting.
Ex-military Johnny started that off with Slingshot Sunday. So I thought I'd give it a try. I hadn't shot a slingshot since I was a kid, but I ended up making my own. Did you see that one? That video? I made a slingshot out of horseshoes.
I did, out of horseshoes. Yes, I did. I thought that was really cool, and painted them red, if I remember correctly.
Correct. Very good.
So, yeah, I remember watching that and watching you shoot with them too, hitting them targets.
Yeah,
With
that
a
was
dadgum-
Well,
What?
it was always, cop mentality, or always one-upmanship, So I just started doing trick shots and long distance shots with it.
Hell. Hey,
So
Wallace,
does Wallace work with you at the same agency?
he does. He used to work. He came to us from the Brandon PD department, police department. And I think that's where he was at before he came to us. And now he was on my shift for a while. But then they moved him over to the forensics unit, and that's it's not forensics like forensic investigation type thing, but it's more of well, that's where they have the high gates or the high fences and the razor wire around the top.
So how many guys do you work with? How many officers do you have?
Not many. We probably, the fact is, on my shift right now, there's only 3. We fill it in mostly with folks on overtime. A shift may have, well, I don't even know how many folks on the A shift, but there's like 3 or 4 folks on C shift, and the rest of them are on A shift. It's a small department, but
I'm getting some when I talk like a delay.
I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna cut off this fan over here in case it's creating any havoc.
No, I think it's on my end. I shut down the original window. I'm on this window.
It could be, but Wallace, you really ought to check out, get in touch, or get with me later. And if you can't find his link, by the way, Mark, if you want to, and if you've still got the thing up, well, that's okay. I can throw the link up there.
I'll grab the link real quick here.
All right, but he's got some really neat stuff on his channel. Well, if you get a chance, you really ought to check it out.
I will do that. I will definitely do that.
And
Where's my comment window here?
we would just talk about checkpoints, and I guess the use of checkpoints and legitimacy, or what they're legitimate for. And Mark was also on the SWAT team, and I'm telling you,
I posted a link in a private chat window.
Okay.
I couldn't see
I
the
see it.
window down there. Yeah, I spent 8 years on the SWAT team, and it was fun. It was a good time.
you'd be hard pressed to find a better shot.
Well, they paid me to shoot, So I was in the sniper position. I was on the SWAT team for 8 years, and I was sniper for 6. But I was a firearms instructor for 24 years, and I also taught it at the community college. And I worked at the community college for 24 years.
And he's got motorcycles, Wallace.
Mark, do you do classes for people that want to learn how to shoot, or people trying to get their license to carry a firearm?
I'm not certified in Texas.
I got you.
I worked in California. I've been retired 15 years.
Uh-huh.
but I will work with somebody. I could run them through. I've done that for friends, and I do it for free.
I got
Anybody
you.
who's Second Amendment friendly and wants to come shoot, and I could teach like tactical rifle courses. Course where you would spend $300 a day. I'll give it to you free. You just bring your own ammo, and I have my own range. And I live right next to the state police main barracks, their main training facility. So they're literally on the other side of the fence, and they have their evac track and their firearm center.
That's pretty cool, Mark.
So yeah, I mean, it's easy for me. I could just go out, walk off my porch, and just start shooting. So it's
That's cool.
I'm lucky.
It is.
So. But that's why I
So
moved.
you retired from California and then came to Texas, huh?
Cashed in. Cheaper to live here, no state income tax. I was able to sell my place, so I'm mortgage free here. And yeah, the quality of life's better, the freedom. I mean, I've been really happy with the decision. I retired in 2007. I had 27 and a half years with my agency, but I purchased my military time back in the 90s. They came out with I think at the time I had to buy 4 years, and it cost me $18,000. 4 years, and I paid for it tax deferred. They took the money out, and anyway, by the time I reached age 49 and a half, I had 32 years of service credit, but I wasn't the minimum retirement age. So I found a loophole in our contract with our city that said I could leave 180 days before my 50th birthday. And we had a 20-year medical benefit. So I had that in my pocket. And it said I could leave 180 days before my 50th birthday and maintain my retiree medical benefit. And I was the first one. I was the youngest officer at age 49 and a half to retire with full benefits. And the first one that did this.
Loophole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, they go, what are you going to do, for salary? I go, well, I already bought my home in Texas, and I'm ready to go, so you got 2 weeks to figure it out because I'm out of here. Anyway, I went without a salary for 6 months, and when I turned 50, I automatically became a full retiree. So it was called the Resign Retire policy.
Resign Retire policy.
Yeah.
That is cool. The older I get, the more I think about retirement.
Yeah. Well, it comes soon enough.
Well,
one thing I did, I was involved in motorcycling. I was a lead motorcycle instructor for my last 10 years. And I was in a specialty position. I did all the fatal accident investigations. So I was an accident reconstructionist. And so my duties, I didn't have to write tickets. I did the training, plus being a firearms instructor, I spent a quarter of my time on the range running retirees through and doing a regular training.
Hey.
But what I did 5 years before I retired is I made friends out of the law enforcement circle with a motorcycle club and built an infrastructure because you just can't go cold turkey, especially if you enjoyed your job. I was ready to leave. I couldn't get out of there soon enough, but you have to have something to go to. You have to have some kind of plan.
Yeah. Hey, that brings up an interesting point or question. My career as a police officer has always been at the hospital. I was 50 years old. I was older when you retired. You were younger than I was when I went through the police academy. But I only say that because it brings up the question of writing tickets, and the fact is that where we work at, there's not exactly In fact, our facility does not receive any funds from the tickets that are written, what have you. I know a lot of communities, a lot of places, do receive funds from most receive funds from tickets written. But in California where you worked, was there like an emphasis to write tickets?
Well, I wrote, man, how many did I write? I think I wrote during my time on motors. I was on motors initially for 5 years, left, went to detectives, had to go back to patrol, spent 2 years patrolling, got back into traffic. But I wrote probably over 18,000 tickets, maybe 32,000 traffic stops.
Wow.
So in California, the way it works is number one, there are no quotas. It's illegal
Right.
to set a job quota. And the revenue from tickets, if it was a vehicle code, went mostly to the state, the court, and a small percentage went to the police, or not the police department, went to the city general fund. It by law couldn't go to the PD. That way they couldn't accuse you of writing tickets to generate income. And that money from the city general fund went to like the parks, the infrastructure, things like that. So the PD did not benefit from the traffic citations. By the time the court and the state and the rest went to the general fund. So that was, to eliminate any type of corruption or, favoritism or anything like that.
Yeah.
We did get, I supervised a volunteer unit. We had like 32 volunteers and they did disabled parking enforcement. In California, that was a $500 ticket. And so what we did, instead of citing for the state vehicle code, we created a city ordinance. And that money then collected from the citations, which was about $3 million a year, went to the city general fund. So that was a pretty effective program that we had, because we get calls a lot of times. The officers just didn't have time to go to a squabble in a parking lot, and that was like a priority 45-minute response time call.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what were the things you did use to determine whether or not you wrote a ticket?
Well, when you're a motor cop, that's your job. I would give somebody a break. If I pulled you over, you're getting a ticket. And so, because that was my primary thing. The only other thing the motor cops had to do, and if you wrote 10 a day, that kept them happy. And you could go out with a radar gun and write. I mean, one day I wrote 75 tickets. So well, California, it's a target-rich environment,
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you just wrote 10 tickets a day, and we had a thing, we started 6 a.m, write 10 by 10, and you spend the rest of the day driving by the store windows and looking and seeing how cool you are in the reflection. Anyway, all the motor cops had to do is we just handled the accidents where someone was taken away in an ambulance. They had to be a major collision. Otherwise, we had non-sworn personnel that took just a property damage, and then the officers would handle the minor injury, complaint of pain kind of accidents. So I couldn't believe they paid me. It gave me a motorcycle, a gun. I'd ride around. We had 11-hour shifts. We worked 4 days a week, 11 hours, and then we had 4 days off.
That's the way to go.
Yeah, so that was nice. And we changed.
What made you ready to get rid of it? Get out of it, Mark? Were you just done with it, or?
Well, yeah, 27 and a half years in law enforcement. I was done. And I was also working at the college, and I was doing accident reconstruction on the side. And then I was also working for the Motorcycle Safety Foundation. I was teaching those beginning rider courses because I had the 4 days off, so I had a lot of time. But when I retired, I had been working 4 jobs for at least, like I said, the college 20-something years, and so about 10 years. So I was just tired of working, and I getting tired of taking crap from civilians. I was about ready to start lopping heads off. So it was just
Time
for
to
me.
go.
Yeah.
Well, that brings me to, I guess, another question that, I'd like to ask. As far as, I know with a lot of law enforcement, it tends to have a well, law enforcement in general, uh, their professional lives tend to encroach upon their personal lives and what have you. Um, did you feel like your personal life, affected your professional life? Did it affect your
It,
personal life?
it affected my marriage. I ended up divorced after 2 years. I didn't get married till I was 28, but I was also another thing I was doing at that time when I got married. I was a bodybuilder. I was competing. I competed for 10 years. So I was working at the college, going to college on my GI Bill, working full time at the PD, and I was on the SWAT team. And so we had training and then call outs. And my wife had a hard time understanding why I would want to sleep in the middle of the day. And so that didn't help kind of things out. But other than that, it really never bothered me. I worked on a case we had that made national news where a guy went home, shot his wife in the face with a shotgun, and took their 18-month-old baby over to the Golden Gate Bridge and threw the baby off the bridge. And then he jumped over. And so I was working fraud. I worked white collar crime. So they were trying to find, they didn't know there was a 10-year-old boy there. And at that time, my daughter was the same age as the baby he threw off the bridge. And anyway, after all this went down, they gave me the address book. So I was just going down calling all these numbers to try to figure out where the kid was. And we found out he was at a private school. So I had to sit with him for 6 hours, keep him entertained until his dad flew in from Alaska, his real dad. So, he lost his stepdad, his mother, his sister, all in one day. So it was a challenge. But that was the only case I had that really, I wouldn't say it bothered me, but I just had thoughts because my daughter was that age. And I just couldn't imagine, somebody throwing the baby off. And what the public didn't know is that was on video because they had suicide watch cameras on the Golden Gate Bridge at the time. But we had a trauma support unit. So after that came in, like we had 2 dispatchers, they freaked out. They were on kind of disability. And one of the patrol officers who really wasn't involved had an issue with it. But so they had a trauma support guy come in, and I was in detectives, and they were going to each person that worked on the case to ask, talk to them and see how they're doing. So the guy comes into me, and I'm just sitting in my office, and over his shoulder, there happened to be a calendar of the Golden Gate Bridge. And he goes, "Well, how you doing, Mark?" I said, I'm doing pretty good. He goes, "You have any issues with it?" I go, "No, I haven't lost any sleep. I thought about it a little bit, but I'm doing good." I go, if you're going to be talking to people about this, we called it the Golden Gate case. You might want to do it somewhere where that's not visible.
Yeah.
So they took the calendar down. But, investigating the fatals, I saw a lot of broken people, and I had to do a lot of death notifications and things. But that stuff just never bothered me. I hunted my whole life, and so I was used to seeing blood and things, and I was always engrossed in what I was doing, So, I was doing something. I just took it as part of my job.
You hadn't checked on him?
I'm on a live stream right now, babe.
You can't just leave the live here for that long.
Okay. She probably got one of your shoes.
Gary, I got to be somewhere else in a few minutes, so I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to
I do too. I've got just a few minutes before I have to be. I've got to actually premiere. But that's pretty short. I just wanted to mention that Mark, I appreciate you sharing with us. Hey, and we got an open door here all the time, anyhow. So it's really just a place to come and shoot the breeze. And yeah, I mean, you do hear about things that affect that cops really go through that a lot of folks just don't think about, like the case that you were just saying. I mean, some folks that would affect them differently. But
Mark, I found that case on Google as soon as I typed in the
Mhm.
details. It popped right up.
Yeah, the other case we had at the time, it was called a diary case.
Uh-huh.
That was on Mari Povich. That's where it was originally investigated as a SIDS, except the baby was 2 years old, and so but the patrol officer didn't catch kind of onto that, so they treated it initially as a SIDS death, but there was indication that the stepfather was sexually molesting the baby.
Oh my God.
Anyway, about a year after that, they found this stepsister's diary, and there was a blurb in there said that she was responsible, but the feeling was that was a guilt statement because she knew that the abuse was going on,
Right.
and so the lead detectives on that case were trying to get the body exam for what do you call it, colposcopic examination of the baby to see if there was molestation, but they couldn't get the
The
coroner.
baby exhumed. Yeah.
Anyway, that made the headlines. That was that same year,
Wow.
the Golden Gate case.
rough year.
Well, Jim, it's been a pleasure, Gary.
All right,
Mark,
well,
nice
hey,
meeting
man.
you.
Yeah, maybe we'll see you again here. We got
All right.
Cotton Rich in here.
Yes. Well, Raquel from Cottonwood Ranch, has been in, I think, most of the time. I think so.
Gary, I'll
But,
give you a holler later, buddy.
all right.
All right.
All right, bye, Wallace.
Bye.
Well, I was
But,
hoping to get to talk to Keto Mike.
Well, I know he's been by here. Hadn't seen him today, and I don't reckon I gave him a reminder. I guess people just kind of show up when they do.
What state
And,
does he live
Mike, I think, is in Georgia. I think.
in? Okay.
In fact, he made a joke about being a pig, police in Georgia. So it was he said he didn't get offended when people called him that. Yeah, but he's good people. But,
Well, after I retired, I mean, everybody pretty much started moving out of state. So we have 10 people around where I live that I worked with. 30 people went to Idaho. We got one in Atlanta, Georgia, and 2 in North Carolina.
wow. Well, it's it's been obviously it's been a little bit longer since you have, but it seems like there's been some flight out of California.
Yeah, I see it around here. It's just a development that's been going on, the traffic. Everybody's leaving the left coast.
Yeah. Well, it's been my experience. I'll admit I will be one of the first ones to admit that used to me in my head. Anytime anybody said anything about California, I mean, I've never been there, but everything you hear about it being such a what is that a blue state? I think they call it a blue state.
Yeah, they keep changing colors every couple of years.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand, it's been a long time since they've a pretty good while since they've had what is San Francisco hadn't, or was it Los Angeles? One of them hadn't had a mayor from a Republican mayor since like 1958 or 68 or something like that.
Yeah. Well, one thing that made California good was it was progressive.
Yeah.
So, it was leading in the tech. We had in our city, we had that's where Tesla left. They were in Fremont at our old GM plant. And the city I worked in was the 6th largest city in the state in square miles.
Cool.
But we had about a 300, it was all suburb middle class. And it was right between Oakland and San Jose, if you know where those are. But being the leader, there's all the innovation. There's also the liberal side of it. So it's like a two-edged sword. And a beautiful state. I mean, the scenery is unrivaled. You got the coast. The weather is, pretty damn good in the Bay Area. But the state is like, when you get north of San Francisco, it's very rural. And 90% of the cities are south of San Francisco, from San Francisco south. And that's pretty crazy. But yeah, it's just eventually the politics. And that's why I left. I just didn't like how they were spending our tax money. We had 5 high schools in our city. One of them had half the students there were illegal aliens, families of illegal aliens. Everything was done to accommodate them. We had the largest Afghan population west of the Mississippi and the largest Sikh. So we had a Sikh temple, a Hindu temple, and when the center of our town was called Little Kabul. Because the Afghan population there.
I don't think that
they're great people.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people. In fact, I don't know if you've ever seen that bubblegum explanation. Sorry, I'm having my mouth just don't want to function properly today. But there's a dude does a bubblegum explanation of what was it? A bubblegum showing about people moving here from other states and, poverty around the world and, how everybody wants to get to the United States. And, you can't help but feel for those folks, but still, we still got folks here that need to be taken care of. I don't know. I don't have any answers.
Well, Theodore Roosevelt gave a speech why it was important to have immigration laws.
Yeah.
And it's protecting your culture. Now, if you look at the D-Day invasion, that was 2 million troops invading and changing a whole culture. And literally, we have more than that every year of people coming in. If you can't control your culture and protect it, then life starts to erode. And I think the biggest thing is not having a national language, because I travel a lot. And what makes you feel like a stranger is not being able to communicate. And California, the driver handbook was like in 170 languages and dialects.
Wow.
So when I left, my neighbors on one side were Hindu and the others were from Tibet. They didn't speak English. So, you just saw them, waved. You couldn't have a conversation. You didn't know what food they liked. And there's this invisible wall there. And,
communication is very important when it comes to building friendships and looking out for one another and for culture, of course.
Exactly.
But we're getting right at 1 hour, and I'm just about to have a live stream that's going to debut at I guess in 1 minute. So I'm gonna have to call it. But thank you for coming on, Mike or Mark. Hopefully you will come through and see us again. Obviously, enjoyed talking with you.
Sounds good, Gary. Appreciate it, and appreciate you too.
Hey,
if you end up going down to Eddie's, hopefully if I'm around.
I will. You can count on that. I'll let you know. We can go have a barbecue or something.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, buddy. You take care.
We'll see you later, brother.
Bye.
All right. Y'all have a good night. Thanks for coming out, Raquel. Anybody else wants to join? Welcome to come talk with us. I'll talk with y'all later.